On September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico, a vibrant psychology student, borrowed her mother's neon pink Huffy bike and set out for her routine 36-mile ride along New Mexico State Road 47. She vanished without a trace. Witnesses reported a light-colored pickup truck, possibly a 1950s Ford with a camper shell, trailing her closely. Its slow pace ominous in the remote desert. Months later, a chilling Polaroid surfaced in a Florida parking lot, 1,500 miles away, depicting a bound young woman resembling Tara alongside a boy, both gagged. Her mother believed it was her, though experts disagreed. Decades later, claims of a local cover-up, including a sheriff's assertion that teenagers accidentally killed her and concealed the crime, have stirred up controversy. Yet, no arrests have followed. What began as a missing persons case ignited a firestorm of speculation, captivating investigators, internet sleuths, and a family desperate for closure. Nearly 4 decades later, new evidence offers hope, yet Tara's fate remains one of America's most enduring mysteries. Imagine waking up one day like any other, only for it to become the last day anyone sees you. Join me for another ride through the strange, odd, and mysterious here at Odd Mystery Stories. Tara Calico's Tuesday morning started with the same routine she'd followed all summer. At 19, she was a college student with a packed schedule. She planned to be back by noon to meet her boyfriend for tennis, and then head to class at the University of New Mexico later that afternoon. She told her mother, Patty, exactly when she'd return, a habit that spoke to her reliability and her mother's lingering concern. Tara set out on her mother's neon pink Huffy mountain bike since her own had a flat tire. The bike, with its yellow cables and sidewalls, was hard to miss. Patty had stopped riding with Tara just weeks earlier. She felt uneasy, convinced that a driver had been shadowing them during their rides. The same car would appear behind them, slowing down, never quite passing. Patty warned Tara to be careful, even suggested carrying mace, but Tara, wanting her independence, brushed it off. That morning, though, she rode alone, unaware of how real those fears would become. The last confirmed sighting of Tara came between mile markers 16 and 17 on State Road 47 at around 11:45 a.m. A school bus driver saw her riding along the shoulder, headphones in, fully focused. Not far from that spot, investigators later found pieces of her yellow Sony Walkman and a Boston cassette tape. The case cracked open in the gravel. Investigators later debated whether the Walkman had been tossed deliberately or if it had fallen during a possible struggle. Either way, the items marked a turning point in the search. Multiple witnesses described a light-colored pickup truck, possibly an early 1950s model Ford with a camper shell, closely following Tara that morning. One person saw the truck crawling behind her. Another saw it parked near where her belongings were found. No one caught the license plate. By noon, when Tara didn't return, Patty's worry turned to panic. She drove the entire route herself, desperate for any sign, but found only the abandoned Walkman. Despite a search that stretched for miles, neither Tara nor the distinctive pink bike was ever found. The missing bike, the scattered belongings, and those witness accounts made one thing clear. Something went terribly wrong on that familiar stretch of road. This was a busy highway in broad daylight, not some isolated path, and yet Tara had vanished, leaving behind only fragments of her routine. Months would pass with no answers. Then a single photograph would appear in a Florida parking lot, raising new questions and pushing the mystery far beyond New Mexico. The Polaroid that surfaced in Port St. Joe, Florida, would become one of the most unsettling clues in the Tara Calico case. On June 15, 1989, a woman stepped out of a convenience store and spotted a photograph lying face up in the parking lot. The image showed a young woman and a boy, both bound and gagged, in the back of a white, windowless Toyota cargo van. The woman recalled seeing the van just moments earlier, driven by a man in his 30s with a mustache. By the time she realized what she'd found, the van was gone. When news of the photo reached Tara's family, her mother, Patty Dole, was struck by the resemblance. The woman in the picture had a scar on her leg, just like the one Tara got in a childhood car accident. Next to her was a copy of My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews, one of Tara's favorite books. For Patty, these details felt too specific to ignore. The photo gave her something she hadn't had in months, hope that Tara might still be alive. Experts were brought in to analyze the image. Scotland Yard believed the woman resembled Tara, but the FBI's findings were inconclusive. The Valencia County Sheriff's Office, lacking definitive proof, never confirmed the woman's identity. The debate over the photo's authenticity only fueled speculation. The boy in the photo added another layer to the mystery. At first, investigators thought he might be Michael Henley, a 9-year-old boy who had disappeared while camping in New Mexico just months before Tara vanished. But in 1990, Michael's remains were found in the Zuni Mountains, and his death was ruled accidental. That left the boy's identity unresolved, and the photo more chilling than ever. One detail stood out. Polaroid officials confirmed that the film used in the image hadn't been available until May of 1989. That meant the photo couldn't have been taken before then, 7 months after Tara disappeared. If the woman was Tara, it suggested she had survived long past that September morning. Theories of abduction and trafficking began to surface, but no solid leads were ever followed. Over the years, 2 more Polaroids emerged, each with disturbing similarities but no clear answers. National media picked up the story, broadcasting the image across the country and turning Tara's disappearance into a case known far beyond New Mexico. But despite all the exposure, the photo only raised more questions than it answered. For years, the public leaned toward the idea of a stranger abduction, but in 2008, a statement from Sheriff Rene Rivera would force many to reconsider what really happened to Tara Calico. When Sheriff Rene Rivera took office in Valencia County in 2006, few expected him to upend the entire narrative of Tara Calico's disappearance. But in 2008, after 2 years on the job, Rivera made a public announcement that sent shockwaves through Belen and beyond. He didn't point the finger at a stranger or a passing drifter. Instead, Rivera claimed he knew what really happened. 2 local teenagers familiar to Tara accidentally struck her with their truck. They panicked and killed her to cover it up. These weren't faceless outsiders. They were boys from the same community, people Tara may have known by name. Rivera insisted he knew who was responsible, but there was a catch. The alleged confessions he referenced came years after Tara vanished, and the men accused were already dead by the time Rivera spoke out. Without Tara's body or any physical evidence, he said, there was no way to make an arrest or file charges. His theory relied on second-hand accounts, especially a statement from Henry Brown, who claimed he had attended a party where Lawrence Romero, Jr., the son of a former sheriff, confessed to the crime. Brown described hearing that after hitting Tara, the group assaulted and killed her, and then disposed of her body to avoid getting caught. But with the key suspects no longer alive, the case remained stuck in limbo. The reaction from Tara's family was immediate and pointed. Her stepfather, John Dole, publicly questioned Rivera's decision to name suspects without presenting evidence strong enough to pursue prosecution. Why say you know who did it if you can't prove it, he asked, a sentiment that echoed the frustration of a family who had waited decades for real answers. The absence of Tara's body remained a constant obstacle, and conflicting witness accounts only added to the confusion. Some recalled hearing rumors about a bike accident that day, but no one could confirm seeing Tara injured or receiving help. Rivera said he hoped that by sharing what he knew, someone might finally come forward and reveal where Tara had been buried, but no one came forward. The community was left with a theory that felt both plausible and impossible to prove. The idea that Tara's disappearance may have stemmed from a tragic accident and was then hidden by people she knew was unsettling. It raised uncomfortable questions about loyalty, silence, and the possibility of a cover-up that lasted for years. As the dust settled, the town found itself divided. Some whispered that law enforcement may have protected one of their own. Others dismissed the theory entirely as a desperate move by a sheriff running out of options. But one thing was clear. Rivera's bombshell forced Belen to look inward and ask whether the danger had always been much closer to home than anyone wanted to believe. Whispers of a hidden truth began to ripple through Belen as Rivera's theory took hold. Suddenly, the story wasn't about a stranger on the highway. It was about people everyone knew. The idea that Tara's disappearance could have been the result of a local accident and a cover-up by teenagers from the community struck a nerve. And the fact that one of the main suspects named in Henry Brown's account was the son of a former Valencia County sheriff only fueled suspicions of a deeper conspiracy. People began to wonder whether family ties and local influence had shielded the truth for decades, letting secrets fester just beneath the surface. Tara's stepfather, John, was vocal in his skepticism. He demanded to know why, if Rivera truly had the answers, no arrests had been made. Without a body or any physical evidence, the sheriff's theory rested entirely on hearsay, mainly Brown's story about Lawrence Romero Jr. confessing at a party. But Romero Jr. had been dead for years by the time Rivera spoke out, and Brown's account couldn't be confirmed by any other witness. It left the community with more questions than answers, and a lingering sense that justice was always just out of reach. The theory split Belen down the middle. Some residents believed Rivera was finally shining a light on what many had quietly suspected, that the truth had been buried to protect the powerful in their families. Others dismissed it as rumor, pointing out that none of the individuals mentioned had ever been charged, and that decades of gossip had never produced any real evidence. The families of those implicated pushed back, insisting on their innocence, but in a small town, even a shadow of suspicion can change how you see everyone you pass on the street. As months turned into years, the lack of hard evidence kept the case in limbo. The absence of Tara's body remained a constant obstacle, not just for law enforcement, but for the community's peace of mind. Rumors continued to swirl, driven by the idea that someone, somewhere, still knew exactly what happened that morning. Rivera's statement had reopened old wounds and left the air thick with mistrust. Even within Tara's own family, perspectives diverged, some clinging to the hope that she had survived, others resigned to the idea of a local cover-up. The silence that followed Rivera's announcement was almost as telling as the rumors themselves. People stopped talking openly about the case, wary of being drawn into the endless cycle of speculation. For many, it felt safer to avoid the topic than risk being accused or implicated by association. The sense of betrayal and loss lingered, with no justice and no resolution in sight. But just when it seemed like the truth would never surface, a new development hinted that the story wasn't over just yet. In June of 2023, after 35 years of searching, the Valencia County Sheriff's Office announced what sounded like a long-awaited breakthrough in the Tara Calico case. Sheriff Denise Vigil stood before the cameras and revealed that investigators had gathered enough evidence to submit the case to the district attorney for review for potential charges.
This investigation to the district attorneys, the people responsible will soon have to answer to this family and to the community who has never stopped thinking of Tara.
It was a moment that reignited hope and speculation across New Mexico and beyond. But the details everyone wanted, names, evidence, even the nature of the breakthrough remained sealed by court order. The secrecy wasn't new. Back in September of 2021, investigators executed a sealed search warrant at a private home in Valencia County. What they discovered there, and what emerged in the months that followed, has never been made public. By June 2023, whatever evidence had been collected was considered significant enough to hand over to prosecutors. Still, the specifics stayed locked away. Sheriff Vigil emphasized that the investigation remained active and the identity of the persons of interest, as well as the evidence, would stay confidential unless a judge ruled otherwise. The use of sealed warrants and court orders suggested something sensitive, possibly information about suspects, testimony, or even the long-sought location of Tara's remains. For Tara's family and the Belen community, the silence was both promising and frustrating. The announcement proved that law enforcement hadn't stopped searching, that leads were still being followed, and that someone, somewhere, was still asking questions. But the lack of transparency left room for doubt. Was this tied to the long-standing theory of local involvement? Had new technology finally revealed something in the old evidence? Or had someone finally come forward, ready to talk? So far, no indictments have been made public, and the case, for now, remains shrouded in secrecy. Time hasn't made the questions any easier. Memories fade, evidence degrades, people pass away. But the push for answers continues, and the hope for justice, however long delayed, remains alive. The 2023 announcement was a reminder that some mysteries refuse to be forgotten, no matter how many years pass or how deeply the truth is buried. Today, the Tara Calico case stands at a crossroads, with the answers still just out of reach and the final chapter still unwritten. Questions linger, especially about that Polaroid. The image of a young woman and a boy, both bound and silent, still haunts anyone who's seen it. Decades later, no one can say for sure if it was Tara in that van, or what really happened in the hours after she disappeared. The details refuse to fade, and the sense of unease never fully lifts. What's your theory about that morning in 1988? Do you believe the latest investigation will finally reveal the truth? Or will this case remain one of the most haunting unsolved disappearances in the country? If you have any credible information, even the smallest detail, contact the Valencia County Sheriff's Department tip line. Sometimes the answers hide in places we least expect, and it only takes one voice to bring them to light. Hey, thanks so much for watching this story. If you're into true crime and odd mysteries like this one, I'd love for you to check out my new e-reading list over at bookshop.com. It's filled with gripping thrillers and mystery books I think you'll love. And if you'd like to support the channel and help keep these stories coming, you can join me on Patreon. Even buying me a virtual cup of coffee makes a huge difference. I truly appreciate your support. You'll find both links right below in the comments section. See you in the next one. Thank you.